Failing to plan is planning to fail. So I sit and I now religiously do it every December. I spend my brain is working like 1,000 miles an hour every December. I plan. And then I do quarterly reviews afterwards, because that's how you can actually hit these goals. And I came up with concepts of how do I break out, because let's back up a second. At $140 to $50 million, I was doing a ton of relationships. I had a ton of listing agents that were referring me. I had a ton of buyers, but now I was maxed out. So how do you go from there to the next level, right? So you're always gonna max out. Just like if you think about it, the $20 million guy that's not growing to 70s, because he's maxed out in $20 million processes that he's used to doing. And you're teaching him, okay, now let's put this into your plan of how do you go to 70. And then we need to plug in how do you go from 70 to 125, because there's an everlasting evolution here, if anything, of how you can continue to grow this. There are guys, the number one guy in the entire country works at my company. He does $1 billion.
Right.
I mean, he does more business as one individual than about 40% of banks as one individual.
He's the guy in Boston.
Yep.
My partner coaches him. He's been to his office, been through his team, gone through his business in detail. But so I think the answer to your question, how do you get from like a $500 million to $1 billion breakthrough? Everybody's different. Everybody has different, when you get to that level, it's a much more customized answer. What do I need to do to get through? For everybody, there's fundamentals. There's fundamentals of process, procedure, systems, technology. There's fundamentals of relationships. And most people do well in one and don't do well in the other. When you're doing well in both, and the next level really is leverage. How do you leverage yourself with people skills? Recruiting, training, what are your operating systems for people beneath you? That's the higher level. Typically the challenge to get to that, the higher level we're talking about, it's all about developing people. What makes great companies? Great companies are always, they attract and develop great people beneath them. So that's what leverages up past that next level. So where you are in particular, it requires, like a doctor, to really get into the details of your business and look at it and customize. Why I got out of coaching as a business full time was when you do that, you have to have one, it's like you saw a hammer, you're hitting with a hammer, some people need a screwdriver instead. And most coaching companies have one set of philosophies that they beat you with and try to fit everybody into. And neither one's right, but especially at the level you're talking about, you're talking about a very sophisticated business with a lot of moving pieces. That literally my partner goes to his office and spends a day or two and just sits there for the first day with a notepad watching everything's going on, looking at the forms, the procedures, listening to phone calls of the staff, the secretary, the LOA, the processors, all that, how the files are handed off. And the next day is recommendations, and they start to implement some stuff. It takes time to follow up on that. That's a very sophisticated level of business. But
were you involved in that part of the process, or Epstein does that?
Epstein does that with the highest level people. I mean, I'm familiar with it. We talk about it. We video it. I look at procedures. It's the same concept he and I did 20 years ago. That's why I had the relationship. But he's the guy who goes into those operations, tears them apart, and gives those people solutions. Oftentimes, it starts though with a reboot of certain fundamentals, either on the technology or the relationship side, because they got really good despite getting a little rusty in certain areas. You need to clean back up again and get those tight before you go to the next level.
Makes sense. Phenomenal. This is great. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Being so honest and straightforward.
Yeah.
It's not every day that you find someone with your level of experience that's doing real estate transactions that comes from the way before.
It's an interesting perspective. I think it gives me a better perspective on operations and duplication. And right now I'm spending a lot of time recruiting agents underneath me because I'm spreading out my business a little bit more regionally. So that just started in COVID. I can't go to corp. I can hire some add-on 8 agents to the team in the last 30 days. So we're starting to build out regionally as well as probably nationally. Pay attention. It's exciting. Yeah, we're excited.
We're seeing a lot of EXP all over, so it's great.
Well, I'll tell you this. The company nationwide, it's got 85% of the year last 5 years. Not so much here in LA, San Diego, it's huge. We're huge.